When I speak, just for this 2 hours, not that I'll be speaking the whole 2 hours, but just for these 2 hours, just let it in. Like, it's like almost when I speak, don't try to understand what I say. Don't try to put it into your beliefs and your knowledge. It's almost like just stepping in the river and going down the river. It's not something that you need to get intellectually. What often happens is you come to a talk like this and you already have belief systems about what non-duality is, or ideas about what non-duality is, and then you try to place in what I'm saying with that. But just see this as like making love with a new person. You just get into bed and you see what happens. And you don't really know what they like, and they don't know what you like, and you both just kind of fumble through it with no expectation of where this is going. Just jump into the river. What happens often when we're hearing new speakers, and I sometimes find that I have this energy with people that they can that either happens, or the whole talk they're trying to swim back up the river and get out. They're like, oh, please let me out. And when you're trying to swim back up, it's when you're trying to understand me and get something from this. Just let it do its thing. And you'll feel it when you're trying to swim back up the river, as your body will be resisting it. And you'll be having ideas. Your body will begin to push away. Your body will be like, And it's like, just let it in. So when that happens, just drop down and let that open. There's so many reasons why you'd resist this. Firstly, I don't look like a speaker, and I don't behave like a speaker normally does. I'm wearing white today, so that gives me a bit of a better chance to be accepted. I don't really fall into the categories. So firstly, I'm breaking a stereotype of what a speaker is like. So that's one barrier you've got. One barrier. This is the trust barrier, because normally you have in your mind an association of what a speaker looks like, and so therefore they get past that first barrier. And if you have an idea of what they should look like, or if you have the stereotype of what a speaker looks like, then you'll feel more relaxed. A 100 years ago, women wouldn't be allowed to come like this. Only 100 years ago. Not just me, I mean women in this room. My mum in the 60s, in order to get a house, she had to have a legal document with permission from her father in order to get a house by herself. So that's not very long ago, the 60s, the 70s. I think she bought her house in the 70s, actually, as a single woman. And that's in the UK, where it's most probably the most forward in the woman image. I think it would be even more advanced in America. I think it would most probably be the most advanced in the world, London. So this is a new stereotype, and it's beginning to happen more and more that young women are beginning to speak about this. So this is a new stereotype just to let in. Here we are. And nobody quite knows what to make of it. Is she being flirtatious, sexual? Is she not? Is she competition? What is this? How does she have life experience? Could she possibly know what it's like to suffer, to be challenged? Does she still have sex? This is a question I get asked often. Number one question, maybe. Although people pander around it and then poof, comes out. And I think the greatest gift as a woman speaker that I can do is remind you of that love of everything, the I am, the everything part of it. I think that the male speakers have done a very good job of pointing out the consciousness and the stillness. But then there's the other side, the love side, where it manifests, the Kali side, the I am. And this is an interesting image that's normally portrayed of Kali. Normally Kali has heads and blood and daggers and is stamping on men, dancing. There's lots of different imagery. And she's very sexual as well. But she represents all of this. She represents the everything part, the movement in form, the growth and the destruction, the birth and the death, this sense of being, which is love. It's the love side to things. So Elango drew me a great chart and got it printed. And it's really, really cute, this chart. So I'm sure you've seen these types of charts before, except this is Lango's design. Oh, thanks. Huh? Oh, no, it's okay. Ah, this was unexpected, the stick. So you have, this is so funny, I love it. You have the wholeness part, which is a heart. And so the way that I would say it, this is Elango's way of saying it, and it's beautiful, is that you have at the very beginning this mysterious force that we can't understand what that mysterious force is. We don't know what it is. It's a total mystery, this mysterious force which creates everything. We can never look back at it in form, but yet it is in all form. So many people call the source consciousness, but that's not the way I see it. I come from more of a Buddhist background, and I see consciousness, even though I sometimes say the source is consciousness, that's just out of the laziness of the way I speak, because it's easy sometimes to say that to someone. And also when people are new to the subject, it's way easier to say it's consciousness, because you can point to consciousness as looking at the person. But actually consciousness is part of the manifestation. So it's total emptiness, which is down here, or wholeness. So we have the total emptiness, wholeness part. And then the first things that comes is the consciousness. So if you put the consciousness here, the first thing that comes is that consciousness, the empty looking. And this all, you can't even say it the first thing that comes, because you can't actually separate it out. It all happens in one instantaneous explosion. It's happening now. So you've got this consciousness, and then instantly with the consciousness, there has to be a form that it looks through. So you've got the body-mind, and as soon as there's the possibility to look through something, there is then the amness, and then the whole world. But this doesn't happen actually separately. The consciousness isn't prior to the body-mind or prior to amness. It's like one explosion, and all of these stages are needed. So you have the consciousness, you need body-mind to look through, an instrument for consciousness to look through. So it's got, in this case, the body-mind. And you also have to have this sense of presence, which is I am. And I might be wrong about all of this stuff, but I get the sense that Kali is the I am part, and that Shiva is the consciousness part. But actually, God, the true mysterious force, is even beyond consciousness. We don't know what it is. Consciousness, no, we can never know that. We can sense it. We can sense that consciousness and that amness, and it's like that is like the direct actor, like the manifestation of God, the manifestation of your knowing, this awakeness that knows everything, and this sense of I am, of being. It's not anybody's I am, it's just immediate sense of the being. Yeah. And the I am, the way I see it is the I am kind of goes into everything. It's the love side. It's that explosion of everything. The consciousness is the stillness in the experience, is that radical sense of knowing that's absolutely still. And the I am is this love that is the explosion to everything. Prior to my awakening, even though I'd realized it many times, I always thought that that I am, that sense of love, belonged inside my body. I always thought, even though I'd had many awakenings, and even the consciousness had been seen many times, and there'd been this energetic awakening of consciousness, I still in some way believed that that sense of existence, that sense of isness, belonged in here. But it actually doesn't. That isness, that amness is everywhere, and this is the love part. There is no outside of I amness. So I appear in that sense of being. This is the love. Everything does, the floor, all sensations, the light. And you can feel this. Remember I said about just stepping in the river. I'm not, in one way I'm a great intellect in comparison to the whole of humanity, but in comparison to the non-duality speakers, I'm not maybe one of the great intellects. But just step into that river, even though ultimately you can't, you know what I mean. There's a part of you that's like, no, I want to get it exactly intellectually right, but just step into that flow and just give up trying to be right or trying to know it intellectually. And that I am is everywhere. You never see outside of I am. That amness is in all faces, is in the curtains, is in this, is in the sound of my voice, as is that knowing, that recognition that this is appearing. And they both belong together. And I sometimes see that consciousness, or say, it feels like that the consciousness is the stillness part, is the emptiness part to this, because consciousness is so empty. Like there's nothing there, it knows, but nothing else. And then the am side, the present side, is the love side, is the heart of it. And taste that, feel that, know that beyond me telling you. And you look for that love everywhere. Consciousness, I'm not sure if you're looking for so much everywhere. The consciousness part, the emptiness part, you're like, but the love part, you look for everywhere. That's what you really want out of life, is that love, is that completion. But they come together, the love and that emptiness. In a way, they have to come together. Love has to be totally empty in order to be true, unconditioned love. So the separate person, when it identifies, that I amness and the consciousness gets sucked inside the body. When the baby identifies, it suddenly feels like there is a conscious being that is looking through this body. And in that, it has the seed of loss. And until this is seen, until there's awakenings, you can't really know this. But it feels like you lost love deep down. And then you spend your life looking for that love in being successful, in women, in men, in ideas, in the intellect. It's all you ever wanted. Nothing more. I read this beautiful article on my phone today called the, I think it was called the gaslight syndrome. Have you ever heard of gaslight syndrome? Yeah, as a therapist. So it was based on this play where her husband, it was a male and female lead, and the husband convinced his wife that she was mad. So she convinced, he did that by, he would move things in the house, he would retell her stories, so she always doubted herself. And then over time, she doubted herself more and more, that she actually began to believe that she was mad. So she then, this is what the gaslight syndrome is. And on my phone, this article was basically saying that this is what the whole of society is doing to us all the time. It's always convincing us to doubt ourselves and that there is something to get out there beyond you. And what non-duality is really trying to express, even though it might seem like you're coming here to get another thing, you've been convinced there's something wrong with you, but actually non-duality is true unconditional love, because what it's trying to show is that I am and that consciousness is your nature. So even though you look out to non-duality and the mind is looking out to take non-duality in for itself, actually the non-dual speaker is trying to show you how it is you, and it's already there. That love that you seek is in the very existence of this. It is your very nature. You could say it is your true nature. It's just not you as someone moving in time. That's the confusion. You believe that you own I am. You believe that I am special, I am good, I am bad, I am wrong, I have lost something. But actually, the I am is free of any of those words. The I am belongs everywhere and not to anyone. It is everything and not a thing. Also the consciousness as well. When I'm just saying I am now, I do mean the consciousness as well, but I'm just focusing on I am. They're one and the same thing. You can't split them up. Like I am is the heart of the consciousness part. So your whole life, you had that seed of separation, and then your whole life, you've been told by society and everyone around you that there's something wrong with you. And you've believed them because you had that sense that there was something wrong. Something went wrong somewhere. And it's not that you purposely chose to believe them. It was a functioning that formed in your body of doubt. And this is really trying to give that power back in the human world, in the personal world, and then in the absolute, so that you can become fully human on one level, and then also seeing that you're not human. Human and not human. Because this is the human expression. And all that needs to happen is the reverse process. So, back to my board. No, this one's good, thank you. So, and pleasure. Pleasure is love. So when you have positive emotions, anything pleasurable that happens, that you are whole and you are worthy. And when you have anything painful that happens, any painful emotions or thoughts, you believe you're unworthy. So the painful stuff validates that there's something wrong with you, and the pleasurable stuff is saying there's not something wrong with you. And you begin to open when you experience pleasure. But what happens is that becomes an addiction of the person, of always trying to have pleasure all the time, because it then believes it's worthy. You are worthy if you're always in a state of pleasure. And if we can recognize anything about life, we know that nothing stays the same. So you never can maintain a constant state of pleasure. It just doesn't happen. So therefore, you go between heaven and hell, this heaven and hell world. When you experience pleasure, you are worthy to be alive. And you are love, you are that I amness, or you taste that I amness, you taste that freedom. And when you experience pain, you feel like God's abandoned you and there's something deeply wrong with you. So you go through these extremes. Then through years of going through these extremes, what actually happens is you then begin to feel bad a lot of the time, because your body is in stress from this addiction to always trying to maintain pleasure. Your worry increases, your fear increases, your anxiety, because you believe that it's your responsibility to always keep pleasure. And you're living a lie, believing that you are somebody moving in time, when who you are is this amness, aliveness, that beingness. So you become stressed and you go more and more into hell. And then this is the Garden of Eden. So you get more and more into the hell world, because you have more and more sense that you have control over life and that it's your responsibility to always maintain pleasure. But actually freedom isn't found in emotions, in thoughts, in pleasure, in pain. So the pleasures that, Alango's got maximum pleasure is sex. So, I think that's for everyone, but I'm just making fun that it's Alango. But for everybody, is reproduction, which obviously it is, because that's kind of what we're set here to do, is reproduce another. So maximum pleasure is to find freedom in this box. Sex. Doesn't work. So you've now come back to realizing that pleasure isn't the answer. And these emotions and thoughts have become unbalanced because you've tried to hang on just to the pleasurable side of life. So what has to happen is going backwards. So you've created this person, and you just have to slide down the loop backwards to the amness. So what happens is there is an addiction to going into the emotions and always finding pleasure. So there is this action of always trying to get pleasure. And basically, you just need to go back, because it's underneath that. It's almost inside it, could say. So what builds on top is you have this sense of you need India to be quiet now. So that might be your new pleasure idea. And you struggle trying to maintain India to be quiet, because no matter how much you can't get it to be quiet. Even when you decide to go right into the country, a rickshaw turns up with a double bass, like boom, boom, boom. You can't get that. So you just have to go backwards. So that feeling comes up of resisting what's happening, and you just have to go back down that line. The resistance comes up, and it says it wants a certain thing, and then you just have to turn it back. I want quiet. Why do I want quiet? Because quiet equals home. I will get home if it's quiet. And what are you looking for when you try to go home? I want love. You just have to slide back down it. And sometimes it's complicated because we form really bizarre ideas and patterns and thoughts around humans, around others. So sometimes the slide is a little bit long. But you just need to go back down the chain. But the crazy part is, this person that feels like it's going back down the slide actually doesn't exist. It's going back down a slide, and then as it begins to go closer to the amness, it disappears. Because who you think you are, the one that thinks it can go back down the slide and has choice to do that, never has actually existed. separately. It's a functioning and a formation. So now it gets new information, that program in the body to go backwards. It goes backwards, but it disappears in itself because there's nobody actually there. Because in being, in this instant, when it really is coming back to the vertical, there is nobody here. There is this alive presence, and that person is a functioning that's coming and going in it. It's not actually an experiencer that's separate. So you kind of like, you're going down the slide and then whoop, there you are, you're gone. What so often happens in awakening is you're here and then here and then here, person and then not, and person and not. Thanks, Alanga. Yes.
No, I'm here.
Oh. We said I wasn't going to use it in the talk. I thought we were going to do it afterwards, like a little video or something, but actually, thanks. That worked really well. Especially the stick I like. This is coming into my Kali. Oops. So for some of you that are new, I'm just a chatterbox today. For some of you that are new, I'll explain a little bit of what happened to Lisa in this. Just because it must be confusing seeing this youngish woman, blonde English woman talking about this. It's not the norm. It's quite unexpected. So what happened to me was, in my childhood, we had a lot of illness in my family. And when you have a different family, things happen different from the norm, it's obviously going to make you question. Also, it's genetic. I noticed that my dad has this predisposition to question everything. So, like in the 70s, he didn't really have the hippie conditioning at all. But he decided when my mum and dad got married that he was going to build out of his own thought processes, not from the internet or something else. He just thought about himself. He was going to build a wind turbine for the garden to power their house. So he kind of, I think it's also partly genetic that it got passed, that my mind questions everything. And then also because we had so much illness in my family, it wasn't something I could ignore. Like I spent a lot of time as a child in hospitals, not for myself, but for family members. And so I saw death really young, and I saw immense suffering and physical pain. I live with my gran, and she always had an open abscess on her leg, which we used to change most days, which was agony for her. And she used to cry most nights in pain from it. And then also my brother was ill as well. And so my mum was full-time carer of both of them. And that's going to make you question things. Like you're going to question what reality is, or you're going to start questioning the norm. And so the norm which I was told I should have, which is a career for a little while and then get married and have kids, didn't fit into me. I just saw this suffering and this pain, and I thought, I can't do that. I can't have the kids and do the family until I understand why we're alive and why we die and why we suffer. So this is the process of what seemed to, it wasn't my process, but all the combination of my dad's mind and then witnessing a lot of suffering made me begin to question things. And you could say it came from a sense of suffering. It hurt to see that. I remember when I was 8 years old, my dad was also incredibly honest with me. I asked him where the cows kept going from the field behind us, and he told me in detail what happened to the cows. And at 8, I became a vegetarian because I was mortified that we were eating the cows that lived behind us. This was shocking. I was going there and feeding them, and then we ate them. Well, not us, but they were in that system. So my dad also told me how a cow was killed and what happened and the whole process of it. So all these things built up to, I can't live this regular life that everyone wants. I cannot rest until I know why I am alive. I cannot work through this life, get to my deathbed and not know what this means to be alive. This was so important. And so at a very young age, that spiritual search started and the awakenings began to happen. And I searched at the time through theatre, through art, and through therapy. And then eventually I went on to Buddhism and then non-duality. And then finally, I lived with my ex-boyfriend, who was a non-duality teacher, but he wasn't famous at the time. It was just me and him. And Ramesh Balsekar had said that I should listen to him. So nobody knew him, and I was pretty much trusting at the time. And I lived with him for 3 years, and we talked about this subject, and I looked and did what I said about going backwards. I just kept going backwards. So my urges would come up, my delusions would come up, and I would trace them back. I would go backwards and see what it was I truly wanted. And always, no matter what, the only thing I ever wanted was the amness. No matter how much I wanted to hate someone or dislike someone or reject something, I managed to trace it back. I managed to not stay very long in that delusion and go back to see what I really, really wanted, and that was home, and to know what this was about. And Lisa never knew what this was about. Actually, when Lisa began to dissolve, then the answers were just there. It was just known. The amness knows, but not intellectually. The consciousness knows. It knows what this is, but not on an intellectual level. It just doesn't question. It doesn't have that movement outside of itself. It is complete. So actually, Lisa never found the answer to what she was looking for, but that Lisa personality that I just told you about dissolved, 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 and that light became present. It stopped hiding. And it was seen really clearly that it was never, ever, ever Lisa's process, that it was a set of circumstances that flowed just like the ocean flows, just like a river flows. It was these particular circumstances were put into play, and one thing led to another to another. And at the same time, it was always spontaneously arising from that emptiness. It was God's will, you could say, or the divine. There was never any independence. I never had a choice about doing it or not doing it. It was a flow of energy, just like all the body-mind mechanisms sat here. You don't have a choice about this. One thing led to another, to another, to another, to another. There isn't even a you there that's listening to me. There is presence, always presence, listening, experiencing.